Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we're going to be looking at Holo Taco's new Cottagecore collection. This is a 7-piece lineup that features 6 cream polishes and 1 flower-shaped glitter topper. So as always, I have a ton of comparisons for these. Timestamps are in the description box down below, but for now, let me just show you the swatches. The first shade in the collection is Nip in the Bud, which is a muted rose pink cream. So I always love a dusty, rosy shade. I feel like they are just so elegant and classy. This one had an absolutely flawless formula. It was super creamy and opaque, but not thick at all, so it just felt so nice, and it was perfectly opaque for me in one coat. Next up is Rose Mary Kill, which is a pale neutral pink. So this one had another buttery smooth formula that honestly was so impressive because it's just such a light color. I'm sure you can see for yourself, the coverage here on the first coat alone is just so incredible, but because it is a little bit lighter, I could still see some dark spots on my nails, so I did go in with a second coat to make sure it's fully opaque. And yeah, I thought the color was nice. It's one of those super light palette cleanser kind of shades that I think can also look really elegant. Then we have Skipping Stones, which is a pale, cool baby blue. So like the last shade, this one had a super smooth formula that just applied itself and provided really great coverage on the first coat. Though again, I wouldn't call it a one coater exactly because it is on the lighter side. So depending on your application, you might see some darker spots. So I would just recommend doing a second coat, but I don't think you would need more than 2 unless your nails were like a lot longer. But either way, it looks super full coverage. The color is so light and airy while still being noticeably blue, which I really love. So we have 2 greens in the collection. The first one is called Time After Time, which is a cool sage green cream. So I have been loving sage greens lately, and I'm just so happy to see this one from Holo Taco. Not to sound like a broken record, but it just had another impeccable formula with a beautiful color. I think I would say that this is my top favorite from the collection. There's something just so light and refreshing about this shade. It is super pretty. And the other green in the collection is called Touch Grass, which is described as a cool grass green. So I personally wouldn't agree with that description, but at the same time, I don't know how else to describe it. Maybe like a darker jade kind of green. Either way, it's another favorite and another one coater. And the last cream in the collection is called Wild Child, which is a muted lavender cream. The irony is not lost on me calling a muted color Wild Child, but it's still a pretty lavender with, you guessed it, another flawless formula that I think I would call opaque in one coat as well. And rounding out the collection, we have Garden Party Taco, which has white flower glitters that are in this semi-matte kind of finish, a pink and silver reflective glitter, a dusting of scattered holo, and a small pink iridescent glitter. So I actually didn't realize that this had reflective glitter in it, but I do think it was still really sparkly and twinkly, although very dainty. Like, even though it looked really packed in the bottle, I feel like the flower glitters were pretty sparse. I feel like I got pretty lucky getting 3 flower glitters on the first swipe, but for the rest of the swatches, I would mainly get 1 and then try to get like another glitter to place afterwards, if that makes sense. So I pretty much had to fish out the glitters, though it probably would have been easier to just keep the bottle upside down for a couple of minutes before using it. Even still, I feel like the little iridescent glitters were pretty sparse, which I don't know, I kind of wish there was a few more of them, but at the same time, it does look really dainty and whimsical, so I can definitely see it working. And lastly, here are my full hand swatches of the collection. So I'm wearing 2 coats of the lighter 3 creams and then 1 coat of the darker 3. And I think they look super flawless. The one note that I will say is that I feel like the greens are picking up a little bit more blue on camera. Like they almost have this teal or aqua kind of tone, but that's not how I see them in real life. Now getting into comparisons, we're starting with Nip in the Bud and of course looking at it next to Lowkey Blushing, which is obviously a lot darker and even warmer, I would say. I think a closer color was Mooncat's A Doll's House, which is their mauve-y, dusty, rosy cream. It looked really similar in the bottle at least, and I also wanted to show this next to Essie's Eternal Optimist, which is another rosy cream in my collection. I thought that one looked pretty similar, but seeing them on the nail, that one is a little too warm. Mooncat's is definitely closer, but it is a bit darker and dustier, which I honestly was kind of surprised by because they look so similar in the bottle. Next for Rosemary Kill, I wanted to quickly show this next to Pinky Swear, which was the pastel bubblegum pink kind of cream from 2 spring collections ago. So that one's not a dupe. If anything, it looks a lot closer to Sweet Tooth, which was the pale pink from last year's spring collection. I would say they maybe look more similar in the bottle though. Obviously on the nail, Sweet Tooth has a much brighter, more white-based kind of color. Rosemary Kill is a lot more dusty. I also knew I had to see this next to ILNP's Soulmate from their Valentine's Day collection this year. That one, if anything, is like more similar to Sweet Tooth, but it's more of an ivory color. To get a little bit more of that pink back in, I thought I could show this next to OPI's Let's Be Friends from the Hello Kitty collaboration. But again, that one is a little too white-based, so Rosemary Kill just has a little bit more pink in it and again is a bit more dusty. Next for Skipping Stones, I wanted to quickly show this next to Too Good to Be Blue, which was also from the Pastel Don't Tell bundle. Again, that one is just a bit more vibrant, so definitely not a dupe. I thought that Skipping Stones almost had this cornflower color to it, so I thought it would be similar to Olive Ev's Jeannie, but that one's a little too dark and too periwinkle. Here it is also next to Olive Ev's Cloudy, which is their super pale blue, but that has like a drop of blue in it. It's definitely very white based, so to get a little bit more blue back in, I thought I could show this next to LeMini Macaron's Blue Vanilla, which is a light sky blue, but again, that one looks more saturated than Skipping Stones. I think the closest value wise was Nailtopia's That's the Tea, but again, like the color is a little off. And another somewhat close shade in my collection was Essie's Borrowed in Blue, which again is a little bit more similar in terms of the value or like the level of dustiness or saturation, but that one's like a true sky blue. It's not as powdery as Skipping Stones. So these definitely aren't dupes, but I knew I had something more similar, and then I remembered Nailpollies You Blew My Mind, which is this super light, soft, powdery blue that has like a little bit of a cornflower color to it. So it's not an exact match, but definitely the closest in my collection. Moving on to Time After Time, here it is next to Crime and Punishment from the Pastel Don't Tell bundle. Again, that one is just way more saturated and vibrant and a bit more minty. Here it is also next to Matcha Maker, which is a little bit less saturated, but obviously color-wise it's still totally different, so nowhere near a dupe. For some other sagey kind of greens, I thought that it was going to be more similar to something like Paintbox's Like Sage, but that one's a little too vibrant. And again, I remembered the Nailpollies collection had a similar kind of green. This one is called Green and Barrett, and I think I would say that these are like the closest to being dupes, like 99% there. I can't quite put my finger on the difference between them, but there is a difference, but I would still just call them dupes to make life easier. Moving on to Touch Grass, I wanted to quickly show this next to Modest Moss from the Down to Earth bundle. That one's more of like a yellowy green and also several shades darker. I thought something more similar was going to be Olive Ev's Zinc, but that one's actually a lot more gray. It's picking up a lot lighter on camera for some reason too, but they're definitely not dupes. The closest shade that I thought that I had was Cirque's Rockaway. It's this kind of celadon green that I thought looked so similar in the bottle, but then seeing them side by side on the nail, they are pretty different, where Rockaway is several shades darker. Then for Wild Child, here it is next to Peri-Social from the Cookies and Crumbs bundle last year. That one's a true periwinkle, so it's a bit more blue toned and a lot more vibrant. I thought maybe Serial Killer would be a little bit more similar because it's a bit more of a red toned purple, but again, that one's a little bit more white based, a little bit more vibrant as well. To get that slightly darker, dusty purple, I thought I could show this next to Mooncat's Freudian Slip, but that one's a little too dark and a little too red based. Wild Child almost looks like a brighter purple here, so I thought I could also show this next to ILNP's Butterflies, which is more of like a true super light purple shade that I think is similar to Holo Taco's Lavender. So again, both of those are just more white based. I thought that LeMini Macaron's Lilac Blossom was going to be kind of close because even though it does look kind of light here, it applies a little bit more dusty on the nail, but obviously it's still just way too light to compare to Wild Child. The only other dusty purple that I had in my collection was Olivev's Artie, which is the swatch stick on the right there, but that one's still a little too light, so I had no dupes. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Holo Taco's Cottagecore collection. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of this lineup because I thought it was generally really nice. I mean, I literally posted a very similar color palette of shades in my favorite winter to spring transitional polishes earlier this week. So naturally, I feel like this color palette just works so well for this time of year, even if a lot of people might look at these and just think that they're very dull and boring. I guess if these were Holo Taco's only spring shades, I would maybe feel the same way, but again, they seem really perfect for this late winter, early spring season. I don't always crave more muted shades. I do usually love my colors to have like a little bit more vibrancy to them, but I always appreciate Holo Taco giving people options because maybe some of those brighter colors were just not flattering for some people and they wanted more muted shades, so they are delivering here. And I think they did a pretty great job at balancing how dusty these were, where they are muted for like pastels, but they still have a really nice color to them, which I think is kind of hard to find. So overall, I don't really have complaints about these. I mean, even the formulas were super flawless, but yeah, like I mentioned, the greens were my top favorite from this set, and I'm hoping the more muted kind of color just makes them more flattering to more people and we'll actually see more of like the normie customer base of Holo Taco actually like come around to green polishes, because I feel like these are just especially beautiful. The only one that I still feel like a little conflicted about is Garden Party Taco, where, you know, at first glance, I was like, it's giving limited to, it's reminding me of Claire's. It has this very like juvenile, you know, kind of look to it. But once I tried it on, I was like, okay, you know, it's actually kind of cute. It's like a dainty topper, but I do wish it wasn't as base heavy. And I know there's like, you know, good reason for it, where it just like makes it a better topper. Otherwise, it would be like too thick. But the whole point is, you know, getting these types of toppers or polishes for their specialty glitters. And so personally, I feel like it would just be better to deal with like a slightly thicker polish if it means an easier time getting the glitters onto your nails. Like in a way, it kind of reminds me of Starry Eyed, which was from the winter holiday release a couple of years ago. That one has these star glitters that, you know, are really fun. Definitely a new glitter shape to Holo Taco's catalog, but it was like impossible to get them out. I mean, granted, that was obviously a glitter bomb type of polish, so there was just so much dense glitter packed into it already. But, you know, for the topper, I would have loved if it just had a little bit more. Even when it comes to the more iridescent kind of glitters, I would have loved to see like a few more of those as well. Just felt a little sparse for me, but it definitely provides like a very dainty effect if that's what you're going for. Also, this is more of like a trivial thing, but the lineup for me doesn't really read as cottagecore. Like maybe it reminds me of a quilt that you would find in a cottage, but personally, I feel like the lineup is very one note. So if you're not feeling super inspired by these shades, you might like my personal curated lineup of cottagecore shades that I shared last year. I was really proud of that lineup, so hopefully you'll enjoy that if you weren't a fan of these. But either way, I would love to know your thoughts down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!